All right, fellas, let's talk. And I mean really talk. What if I told you that women have this uncanny ability to size you up, to sense your weaknesses, even before you open your mouth? Sounds like some kind of superpower, right? But it's not magic. It's a combination of psychology, evolution, and a whole lot of subconscious cues. Most guys are clueless about these signals they're sending, but women are picking up on them constantly. It's not about brute strength or flexing your muscles. It's about something deeper: emotional resilience, leadership qualities, and a quiet self-assurance. The video serves as a launch pad, throwing out some intriguing ideas. But we're going to take those ideas and run with them, weaving in our own experiences, insights, and observations to create something even more compelling. We're not just rehashing, we're building. So, ditch the idea that weakness is about failing or making mistakes. Everyone stumbles. Real weakness lies in your inability to handle adversity, your constant need for validation, and your lack of control over your own damn emotions. As Stoics, or aspiring Stoics, anyway, we know that true strength comes from within. It's not about putting on a show for the world. It's about mastering your thoughts, your reactions, and your responses. Ready to find out what signals you might be sending that scream weakness without you even realizing it? Let's get to it. Decoding the signals. What women see that you don't. We live in a world of constant communication. We're bombarded with messages, signals, and cues every single day. And a lot of that communication happens on a subconscious level. We're constantly sizing each other up, making judgments, and forming opinions, often without even realizing it. Women, in particular, are wired to be highly perceptive. Evolutionarily, they've had to be. They've had to be able to assess potential partners, to identify strength and stability, and to ensure the survival of their offspring. That's why they're so good at picking up on subtle cues, the little things that reveal a man's true character. And unfortunately, those cues can often reveal weakness, even when a man is trying his best to project strength. So what are these cues? What are the signals that women are picking up on that might be undermining your efforts to project confidence and self-assurance? Let's break it down. 1. The validation vampire, constantly seeking approval. One of the biggest turnoffs for women is a man who's constantly fishing for compliments, who needs constant reassurance, who can't seem to function without external validation. It's like you're carrying around an empty bucket, desperately waiting for someone else to fill it up. Psychologists call this an external locus of control, where your self-worth is dictated by outside opinions rather than your internal values. Men who constantly seek validation are like emotional vampires, draining the energy of those around them. It creates a dynamic where you're always performing, always trying to be enough, and it's exhausting for everyone involved. How does this show up in real life? Compliment fishing. Do you think I did a good job on this? Do you like my new shirt? Am I funny? Opinion mimicry. Changing your opinions to match hers, just to avoid conflict or gain her approval. Texting obsession. Becoming anxious and desperate for responses to texts or social media likes. It's like you're constantly asking, do you like me? Do you really like me? And that's a huge red flag. Epictetus, that Stoic OG, said it best. Seek not the good in external things. Seek it within yourselves. Stop looking outward for approval and start developing your own metrics for success. Ask yourself, did I live today according to my principles? Did I act with courage and honesty? If the answer is yes, you need no applause. Women are naturally drawn to men who are self-assured, who don't need constant reassurance, because they know who they are and what they stand for. By becoming internally validated, you project strength without saying a word. I remember a time when I was constantly seeking validation from a particular woman. I would try to impress her with my accomplishments. I would agree with everything she said, and I would constantly ask her for her opinion. Looking back, I cringe. I was basically begging for her approval, and it was a huge turnoff. She could sense my insecurity, and it completely undermined my efforts to project confidence. It wasn't until I started focusing on my own goals, my own values, and my own self-worth that things started to change. I stopped seeking her approval, and I started to live my life on my own terms. And that's when she started to become genuinely interested in me. 2. The conflict avoider, sacrificing your needs for peace. Weak men fear conflict. They mistake being agreeable for being likable, thinking that saying yes to everything will make them more attractive. But women see right through this, and they lose respect for it. In psychology, this is called submissive communication, where you suppress your own needs and desires to keep the peace. Over time, this creates resentment, both within yourself and from others who sense your lack of backbone. How does this show up in real life? Agreement over authenticity, agreeing with opinions you don't believe in just to avoid tension. Excessive apologizing, apologizing excessively, even when you've done nothing wrong. Immediate backing down immediately when challenged, even if you know you're right. It's like you're afraid to rock the boat, afraid to stand up for what you believe in, afraid to assert your own needs. And that's a sign of weakness. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the object of life is not to be on the side of the majority, but to escape finding yourself in the ranks of the insane. Being stoic doesn't mean avoiding conflict. It means engaging in it wisely and calmly when necessary. Practice assertive communication. Express your opinions clearly and respectfully without aggression. Women respect men who stand their ground with dignity. Remember, strength isn't about dominance. It's about knowing when to speak and when to stay silent, without fear guiding your choice. It's about being willing to stand up for what you believe in, even if it means facing opposition. I used to be a huge conflict avoider. I would go to great lengths to avoid arguments, even if it meant sacrificing my own needs and desires. I thought that being agreeable would make me more likable, but it actually had the opposite effect. People started to take me for granted. They knew they could walk all over me, and I wouldn't say anything. It wasn't until I started to assert myself, to stand up for my own needs, that I started to gain respect. 3. The emotional roller coaster, lacking control over your feelings. A man ruled by his emotions is a ship lost at sea. Women are deeply perceptive to emotional instability, whether it's outbursts of anger, jealousy, or insecurity. These reactions scream weakness because they signal a lack of self-mastery. Emotional volatility often stems from a lack of awareness and poor coping mechanisms. Instead of processing your feelings calmly, you react impulsively, driven by fear or ego. How does this show up in real life? Defensiveness, becoming defensive when criticized, even if the criticism is constructive. Overreacting to minor inconveniences, letting them ruin your entire day. Jealousy, allowing jealousy to consume you when she talks to other men. It's like you're a walking time bomb, ready to explode at any moment. And that's a major turnoff. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Emotional mastery starts with understanding that your feelings are not facts. They are temporary reactions to external events. Practice mindfulness and reflection. When you feel anger or insecurity rising, pause, breathe, observe the emotion without acting on it. Over time, this builds resilience and calm under pressure, which women find incredibly attractive. A man who can remain composed in chaos signals strength far more powerful than any physical display. It shows that you're in control of yourself, that you're not easily rattled, and that you can handle whatever life throws your way. I used to be a very reactive person. I would let my emotions control me, and I would often say and do things that I regretted later. It wasn't until I started practicing mindfulness and meditation that I started to gain some control over my emotions. I learned to observe my feelings without judgment, to recognize them as temporary states, and to choose my responses more consciously. It's been a game changer in my life, and it's made me a much more stable and reliable person. 4. The all-talk, no-action show, promising the world but delivering nothing. There's a saying, a lion doesn't have to tell you it's a lion. Yet too many men fall into the trap of talking endlessly about their dreams, intentions, and abilities without ever showing proof of their worth. Women pick up on this instantly. They hear the lofty promises, the bold declarations, and the endless someday plans, and they know it's all just hot air. Why does this signal weakness? because talking without action is insecurity in disguise. It's an attempt to seek validation through verbal displays rather than tangible results. A man who constantly talks but fails to act reveals that he's unsure of himself. He's trying to convince not only others, but also himself that he's capable. This behavior is rooted in what psychologists call impression management, the desire to shape how others see you. But here's the irony. The more you talk about what you're going to do, the less impressive you become. Words are cheap. Action is rare. Women respect men who don't just make promises but quietly deliver results. When a woman hears a man endlessly bragging about his future successes, she knows she's dealing with someone who lacks discipline and follow-through. He's not a builder. He's a dreamer stuck in idle fantasy. Signs you may be falling into this trap include constant goal announcing. You constantly tell people about your goals, but never take measurable steps toward them. Achievement exaggeration. You exaggerate your achievements to seem more impressive. Broken promises. You make promises you can't or won't keep. A man who talks more than he acts becomes predictable and untrustworthy. Women are naturally drawn to those who do the opposite, those who move in silence, surprising others with their accomplishments rather than their empty boasts. It's about letting your actions speak for themselves, about demonstrating your capabilities through tangible results, about being a man of your word. I've known plenty of guys who are great talkers. They could charm the pants off anyone with their eloquent descriptions of their future plans. But when it came to actually putting in the work, they always fell short. They were all talk and no action, and it was a huge turnoff. It showed a lack of discipline, a lack of commitment, and a lack of genuine self-belief. 5. The victim card, blaming others for your problems. A man who refuses to take responsibility for his life might as well wear a neon sign that says, "I'm weak." Nothing turns off a woman faster than a man who plays the victim, constantly pointing fingers at the world for his shortcomings. This behavior stems from a fragile ego that can't handle failure. Blaming others is a defense mechanism. It shields you from facing the harsh reality that your problems are often self-created. But here's the catch. By refusing to take accountability, you also forfeit your power to change your circumstances. Women instinctively know this. They recognize that a man who blames others is a man who will never grow. He's someone who will wallow in self-pity, never rising to meet life's challenges head-on. This kind of mindset signals weakness because it shows a lack of resilience, maturity, and emotional intelligence. How does this manifest in daily life? Job complaint loop. You complain about your boss, your job, or your coworkers without taking steps to improve your career. Relationship blame game. You blame your ex for the failure of your past relationships without acknowledging your own role. Bad luck excuse. You chalk up your lack of success to bad luck instead of taking responsibility for your actions. Women are drawn to men who own their mistakes because accountability signals strength. It shows that you have the courage to face adversity and grow from it. Conversely, a man who refuses to take responsibility becomes stuck, stagnant, and unattractive. It's about taking ownership of your life, both the good and the bad, about recognizing that you are the architect of your own destiny. It's about facing your challenges head-on, learning from your mistakes, and constantly striving to become a better version of yourself. I used to know a guy who blamed everyone else for his problems. He blamed his parents for his upbringing. He blamed his teachers for his lack of education. He blamed his boss for his lack of career success. And he blamed his ex-girlfriends for his relationship failures. It was exhausting to be around him. He was always complaining, always making excuses, and always playing the victim. He never took responsibility for his own actions, and he never seemed to learn from his mistakes. Unsurprisingly, he was perpetually unhappy, and he never seemed to be able to achieve his goals. He was trapped in a cycle of self-pity and resentment, and he couldn't seem to break free. 6. The yes man, struggling to set boundaries. A man who can't say no is a man without boundaries, and women can sense this instantly. At first, they may appreciate your willingness to be agreeable, but over time, this behavior signals a deeper problem, a lack of self-respect. When you say yes to everything, you're not being kind or generous. You're being spineless. You become a people pleaser, bending over backward to gain approval and avoid conflict. And here's the harsh truth. People, including women, don't respect those who can't stand up for themselves. The inability to say no often stems from fear, fear of rejection, fear of disappointing others, and fear of conflict. But this constant compliance creates a vicious cycle. The more you say yes to things you don't want to do, the more people expect it from you. Eventually, you lose control of your own life, becoming a passive participant instead of an active leader. How does this weakness show up? Social obligation over self-care. You agree to social events or favors even when you're exhausted or uninterested. Time and energy exploitation. You let others take advantage of your time and energy without pushback. Politeness before needs. You avoid saying no because you don't want to seem rude or selfish. Women respect men who have clear boundaries and the courage to enforce them. A man who says no when necessary signals strength, confidence, and self-respect. Without these qualities, you come across as weak and easily manipulated, a dynamic that quickly erodes attraction. It's about knowing your own limits, about valuing your own time and energy, and about being willing to stand up for your own needs, even if it means disappointing others. I used to be a chronic yes man. I would agree to do things I didn't want to do just to avoid conflict or gain approval. I thought that being agreeable would make me more likable, but it actually had the opposite effect. People started to take advantage of me. They knew they could ask me for anything, and I would always say yes. I was constantly overcommit, stressed out, and resentful. It wasn't until I started learning to say no that things started to change. I started to prioritize my own needs, to value my own time, and to stand up for what I believed in. And as a result, I gained more respect from others, and I felt much more in control of my own life. 7. The aimless wanderer, lacking purpose and direction. Perhaps the most profound signal of weakness is a man who drifts through life without direction. Women are naturally drawn to men who live with intention, who have a mission, a passion, or a purpose driving them forward. A man without purpose, however, becomes invisible, blending into the background as just another aimless wanderer. Purpose isn't about fame, wealth, or grand achievements. It's about having a reason to get out of bed in the morning, a goal, a passion, or a set of principles that guide your actions. Without this, life becomes hollow, marked by distraction and meaningless pursuits. A man lacking purpose often exhibits the following behaviors. Endless distraction. He spends hours scrolling through social media or binge-watching TV without a sense of accomplishment. Career drifting. He drifts from job to job without any clear career path or ambition. Fleeting pleasure-seeking. He prioritizes fleeting pleasures, partying, meaningless hookups, or material possessions over long-term growth. Women sense this lack of purpose because it radiates from your actions, your conversations, and even your body language. It signals stagnation, a refusal to strive for something greater. Conversely, when a man has purpose, everything about him changes. His energy becomes magnetic. He moves with confidence and speaks with conviction. He doesn't need to seek validation because his fulfillment comes from within. Attraction isn't just about looks or charm. It's about the life force you carry, and purpose is the foundation of that force. Without it, you become forgettable. With it, you become unforgettable. It's about having a clear vision for your life, about knowing what you want to achieve, and about taking consistent action to move closer to your goals. It's about living a life that is meaningful, fulfilling, and inspiring, both to yourself and to others. I've seen countless men drift through life without any clear sense of purpose. They bounce from job to job, from relationship to relationship, never really committing to anything, never really striving for anything greater. They're often unhappy, unfulfilled, and lacking in energy. They're like leaves blowing in the wind, carried along by the currents of life, without any real control over their own direction. But I've also seen men who have a clear sense of purpose, men who are passionate about their work, their hobbies, or their cause. They have a fire in their eyes, an energy that is contagious. They're inspiring to be around, and they tend to attract success and fulfillment in all areas of their lives. Turning weakness into strength, the Stoic path to self-mastery. So, there you have it. 7 ways women can spot weakness, often before you even realize it yourself. But here's the truth. Recognizing these patterns isn't about becoming obsessed with external validation or manipulating how others see you. It's about self-mastery. The Stoic path teaches us that real strength begins within. When you develop emotional control, confidence rooted in action, and a clear sense of purpose, you naturally project power without saying a word. Women notice it, people respect it, and most importantly, you respect yourself. It's about becoming the best version of yourself, not for anyone else, but for your own sake. It's about living a life that is aligned with your values, your purpose, and your highest potential. To summarize the most important points, validate yourself. Stop seeking approval from others and cultivate a strong sense of self-worth. Stand your ground. Don't be afraid to assert your own needs and opinions, even if it means facing conflict. Master your emotions. Practice emotional control and choose your responses wisely. Actions speak louder. Focus on delivering results rather than making empty promises. Take responsibility. Stop blaming others and own your mistakes. Set boundaries. Learn to say no and protect your time and energy. Find your purpose. Discover your passions and live with intention. By embracing these principles, you can transform your weaknesses into strengths and become the kind of man that women and everyone else admire and respect. You'll project an aura of self-assurance, capability, and strength that is far more compelling than any superficial display of bravado. So, start today and begin your journey on the Stoic path to self-mastery. Ultimately, what are you projecting out to the world? Are you in control, or are you letting the world control you? Take charge of the messages you are sending to project the strength within.